soul friends, to our Facebook Knowings. I wanted to thank you all for the brilliant questions that you've sent to us. And though, of course, I can't answer all of them, I wanted you to know that I do see them all. And I'm sending you great love and the most radiant light.
Because this is a question from Claudia from Brazil. She says, Brazil has recently created the Comissão da Verdade to clarify and recognize crimes against humanity during the military dictatorship. She asks, what can we do to help to find the people that disappeared, as well as their children that were separated or kidnapped from their families?
That's a really long question, Claudia, and one that's important to people all over the world. And I congratulate Brazil for coming into an awareness that we need to educate the military, educate the powers that be, that we cannot commit crimes against people or society because we have a different perspective about who has the power, and to destroy those who threaten that power. It is not the way of the future. And so it is wonderful that Brazil is looking into this and making it something that the public can become aware of. When it comes down to how can you help find these people that were separated from their families, there are several ways that you can address this. I would begin by saying that all that happens to us for a purpose, even if it's terrible. Because if a child is separated from their families, we would presume, and I know, that on a spiritual level, they will be balancing some kind of karma and they will learn something. They will survive. It may be that terrible accident, that terrible experience that brings them into a sense of wanting to change the world, wanting to change the way things are in Brazil. Sometimes we need those terrible experiences to shift us into a way that is beyond our personal realities and into an octave where we care that much about the good of the whole that we dedicate our lives to that. It's very possible that some of those desaparecidos have indeed or are now working on this very theme that you're speaking of. So one thing spiritually is that it may be okay, not socially, not from an emotional perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, because it might be enlightening or serving to change the world. The other aspect of that is that we can influence by making it known that people who have had that problem can come forward now, that they will be safe. So this comissão needs to be sure that it invites people who have had these experiences to let go of their fear and come forward, as well as the witch hunt for those military beings who created the problem in the first place. Now, what can you do? I would begin by gathering up all in your mind's eye, the children, the families, the survivors, and the political people who were a part of that era, and a part of those experiences, into your mind's eye, and then ask them what frequency of light they need to come into balance now and be released of this karma so that they can be safe, so that they can be helped. By drawing that light in, that color from the cosmos, and extending it out to them, you can actually shift their consciousness in such a way as to support them. And this is very important, that we recognize that we have a part in it and that we can do something through our consciousness to make a difference. Another aspect is to send light to all of those military people in power who participated in those crimes against society, against humanity. Send them light so that they can be illuminated and be released of the shame or the justification or the separation or the illusions that they have. Because once someone is instilled with the justification, then they use that in all levels of their lives. They might use it with their family. They might use it, they might continue to use it to the detriment of everyone around them. So by sending them light, you can also free yourself from the judgment, because we can never tell on a spiritual level the purpose. And this purpose is never for suffering or harm. But there is a purpose of evolution always involved in any experience within our reality. So by giving the bad guys light, you can illuminate and shift them from the repetition of that kind of karma. Now, there are many, many beautiful psychic beings, channels in Brazil. And if in your area you're concerned about that, seek them out and maybe help them to gather together. This is a project that I had in Russia at one time. It was called Human Potential and Global Responsibility. You could gather them together and ask them to begin to meditate. If you had a way of getting lists of names, you could sit down with a group of them and find out who's alive, who is not, who is in which part of the country, where are their children. You can find this out through intuitive channeling octaves. And I think it's very important in today's world to use these capacities that we humans have for the good of the whole in a higher octave, and not just let me tell you about your deceased brother or what's going to happen to you in the future, but rather to use this capacity in a much higher octave. And you could be the instigator of that, gathering them together, seeking them out, finding lists of people, and going from there. It's a great project. It's a humanitarian project. And I send you my blessings and my support. Great love.
Chris, this is a question from Carolyn Havens. What will happen to the people who are denying the ascension process is happening? There's a large religious community who are saying it is an evil event. Know what? My son belongs to one of these churches, so I'm concerned. Thanks for all your beauty that you have been sharing with the world for a long time. Many blessings to you, Chris.
And blessings to you, dear one. You know, you can never argue with your son about what the meaning of this is. But there is a way around the separation or the confusion. Remember that so much of the biblical energies have been about the destruction because of our evil, because of our wrongdoing. And that's been imprinted since the time of the tribes. It's been a way of making people feel shame and feel that they have to do something to be all right. When we have that guilt and that negativity, we look for others that will comfort us or support us. We look for structure, and that's what happens in those kinds of religious groups. When I get involved in those conversations, what my higher self taught me is to say, what's important for me is to touch into the teachings of Jesus the Christ. He didn't teach about destruction and punishment and hell. He taught about love and compassion and healing. And so for me, it's more important to look at the changes, the ascension, not as something that's just trying to get us out of this world, but that's something that belongs to the evolution of our species because of our connection to a God source. And so the way that we have that ascension is that we embrace all, and we become the template, as was Jesus the Christ and other great godly figures, to show compassion, to move beyond the separation and touch the place where we can come together. And so I just moved the conversation to, what's the thing that you love the most about Jesus the Christ, for example? I do too. And I want to be that way. So whatever time we have, whether the earth comes to an end, however it is, or we lift to a higher level, let us now live that with each other. I will love you. Can you love me?